Hey, welcome back to my channel, IndieAuthor Jill, where I read and review indie author books. And today we are looking at how to live an extraordinary life with or without Mr. Right, a Christian woman's guide on how to survive and thrive on Single Avenue by Latosha Johnson. Even without the second part here, it's a long title. So, this is the first non-fiction book that I've had since starting this channel. Everything else has been either fiction or fantasy. Well, no. That's wrong. I forgot about Jimmy's Japan, which was a non-fiction book, but it was a memoir, not a memoir. I don't know how to say that word. But it was a memoir, not a self-help book or any kind of what other it wasn't giving you any information, like a travel guide or something to that effect, So it was it was just him talking. It was his story of his memories of being introduced to Japan, and this is more on the self-help spectrum of non-fiction. And I don't really have a whole lot to say about the book, mainly because it's pretty self-explanatory of what it is. I was concerned, I guess, at first that it was going to be one of those books that kind of advocates for single living in a way that didn't necessarily align with my own values. I'm very much a save yourself for marriage type person. And I know that there are a lot of people that are pushing the don't get married, stay single, and have your fun because you can have all of the stuff, you can do all the things that married people do without having the commitment. But Latosha is very much in the same camp I am of, save yourself for marriage. But I also like that she, I agree with her on a lot of aspects, like a lot of the different things that I didn't necessarily, there were a few things that I felt like her and I wouldn't see quite eye to eye on, but they were so inconsequential that it doesn't even matter because by and large we agree. So one of the things that one of the big things she and I both agree on is the idea that your single years should not be spent in misery. You shouldn't be upset that you're single. And as she says, getting the man isn't the goal. Being the best version of yourself is. And because as she points out, how can you be the best wife you can be if you're not even the best you can be, But the other thing that we very greatly agree on is that a woman's worth isn't tied up in her marital status or whether or not she is or it can be a mother. And with that, like, she points out a lot of scriptures, and this is very, it's no surprise that it's very heavily Christian based, which I'm perfectly fine with as a Christian woman myself. She makes references to a lot of different scriptures to back up her points. The scriptures that she uses to back her points are valid. The scriptures she uses to back up her points are very well used, and I feel like they're very well understood by her. Like she's not just taking scripture and interpreting it in a way that makes her point for her. She is interpreting it like there is no interpretation, so to speak. She is just taking it like this is what it says, and where interpretation is needed, she gives it. But for the most part, she's taking it like take this at face value. When there are parts where God and Jesus themselves are saying this is what is expected from a man in a marriage, and this is what is expected from a woman in a marriage, but there's never an indication that every man and every woman must be married in this mortal life. You know, that the purpose of a person's life isn't just get married and have kids. There are several times in the scriptures where he says, go forth and multiply. What he's doing, he is speaking to married couples. He's not speaking to people who are not yet in a committed union. Marriage obviously was not something that existed in the same framework that we have now when Adam and Eve were on the earth, but they were literally married in the eyes of God, who told them to go forth and multiply. He considered them a committed married couple in the eyes of the Lord. When Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and his 3 daughter-in-laws stepped off the ark, he told them, go forth and multiply. Again, he's talking to 4 couples who are already in a committed married relationship. And, you know, I think that one of the biggest things that we run into in our society today is, especially for the women in the church, because no one really seems to put the pressure on the men in the church. It's always the women in the church asking young married women, okay, so when are you going to start having babies? You know, time's ticking, you got to get on that, you know. And it's confusing to me, because these are women in a church and they understand the female anatomy. They understand the female biology, that not every woman is able to function the way every other woman is able to function. I have known people who would love nothing more to be a mom, but they can't get pregnant. And we seem to have this thing where we want to tie a woman's worth into whether or not she's marriage material or whether or not she's a mother. And if you're not married or if you're not a mother, then there's something wrong with you. If you're not married, okay, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you married? Why isn't somebody snatching you up and making an honest woman out of you? As if being married is what makes you an honest woman. There's also that when they, like I said, when they do get married, then the question is, well, when's the kids coming? When are you going to start having children? And they have this weird dialogue of, if the woman is not ready to start having children as soon as she's married, if she wants to focus on her career, focus on her education, get her and her husband a little bit more financially stabilized before they bring children into the mix, they're being selfish. And she addresses all of these things and explains, like I said, this is where her and I agree, that it's so crazy that a woman would bring another woman down or make another woman feel less than, when you know as a woman not every woman can have children. And I've seen this with even when they have children, if they for some reason or another have medical issues that prevent them from being able to breastfeed or be able to produce breast milk, then people are lashing out at them like, oh, you're not breastfeeding your baby? What a terrible mother. You have to breastfeed them. But, you know, there are women who literally just can't do that. And, you know, formula is the only answer they have. And it's really hard for some people like me and another friend, you know, I was back and forth on whether or not I wanted children. I was never like 100% sold on the idea of being a mom. As Latosha and I both have the same situation where we've watched our parents struggle raising kids. And her parents, she talks about how, what a great relationship she had with her mom, how her and her sister have a great relation, how she was raised up in a very loving and supportive and strong Christian family. Her parents struggled more than her and her sister did, because they came from toxic families that were not involved in the church, and eventually to the point where, in order to protect Latosha and her sister, they had to cut their families out of their lives and go no contact with them because they were just so toxic. But they overcame those odds where they, by every statistic, her parents should have gone the way of everybody else in their neighborhood, of getting into gangs, getting into violence, getting into drugs, getting into deep too fast. And somehow they managed to be successful in their careers. They managed to have a marriage that lasted up until her father's passing. They raised 2 girls who were raised in the gospel and raised in the church, and were able to have them go to good schools and have good educations. And so she realizes how much her mother sacrificed for her and her sister. And as she points out, a person's focus should be Christ-centered. And Christian, and again, this is from a Christian standpoint. I understand that there are other religions that may be focusing on this, watching this video. There may be people who are completely agnostic or atheist. So whatever you want to call whatever your higher power is, whether it's a god or if it's just the universe or whatever, you call it whatever you want. For me, it's God. It's our Heavenly Father. And if that's not for you, I mean, I'm not here to judge. And that's one of the things Latosha and I both agree on. It's not our job to judge you. It's our job to love you. From a Christian standpoint, we believe our goal or our purpose is to be Christ-centered. So if you're single, you can do that. You can spend more time focusing on Christ. Now, if you get married, you can't just focus on Christ because your marriage isn't going to last. A marriage takes work. It takes effort. It takes, attention. One of the reasons I do my YouTube video, this is the way I do, why I don't, put a lot of effort into a lot of the editing or everything. I try to do these in one shot so that I can just get them done, because I never want the YouTube channel to be more important than my husband. So, you know, like I've said in other videos, I have a full-time, I've got a part-time job actually, but I've got a part-time job. I like to write my stories. I have chickens that need tending, gardens that need tending. I have a social life outside of all of this. I have friends, and got to keep up with my family because my mom is passed, but my dad is still alive. My brothers are still alive, you know, and I love staying in contact with them because I had a toxic upbringing, but the toxicity wasn't necessarily in my immediate family. It was just kind of what surrounded our family. I grew up as an army brat, and so we didn't always get a choice of where we lived. And some of the times when we were in army base houses, the neighbors weren't necessarily part of the army. Like, it was like an army base house that was in a neighborhood with other families that were not military families. And so we had a very diverse upbringing, and we never, like, I was in 4 different high schools before I finally graduated. You know, when you're changing schools, especially when it's a high school, because your credits, what's required for credits to graduate in this high school is very different from the credits that are required in this high school. I had to take biology like 4 times. In each school I was in, I had to take a biology class because whatever biology class I had taken in the other school, for whatever reason, didn't count, even though it was the exact same class. I have dissected 4 different frogs. You would think one of those would count for something, but apparently it wasn't until the last frog that something finally was like, okay, yeah, now we know you know what you're doing. Well, yeah, I've done this 4 times. I could point blindly to the frog's spleen, if they have spleen. I'm 45. High school was a long time ago. I don't know if they have a spleen in it, alright? They might. I don't know. That wasn't what I was interested in. I've always been a writer. I always thought I was going to be a writer. So it never occurred to me that maybe the fact that a frog does or does not have a spleen would feature into my writing. But you know what? Google exists now. So I can just look it up. If frogs have a spleen. But if they don't, it doesn't matter. But I think it's interesting. I love how she talks about this because she herself talks about how she's single. She's in her 40s. She's never been married, never had kids, and she is, again, a very big no sex before marriage, and she's fine with that. You know, so, but as she points out, there are some people who are like, well, I don't know if I can do that. Do frogs have spleens? We're going to find out. Yes, frogs absolutely have spleens, which are vital organs in their circulatory and immune systems. Good to know. Where it is, I don't care. It's inside the frog. Probably. Most definitely. But, you know, one of the things she brings up, that there's all these arguments about with women if they don't have kids. If you're single and you don't have kids, you're being selfish because, and like she says, it feels like it's a misery loves company type thing. You've got these moms out here that are miserable and they want other people to be miserable, and that's not necessarily always the case, and that's one of the things her and I disagree on, but it's because of our experiences. And this is why I say it's inconsequential what we disagree on, because the women she's met that are moms, they seem miserable and stressed and whatnot. But, like, I know a woman, she currently has 10 children, and they range from 2 to 20-something, and if you asked her, and I have, she would like to have at least 2 more. She would love to have 12 kids because she loves being a mom. And Yeah, it's tiring. It's exhausting. She does seem tired. But I have never seen someone so happy. This woman looks like she is just living her best life. She has the three youngest are 8. Okay, so I think he just turned 9, 10. So she has a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And she'd like 2 more of these little ankle biters. And I don't blame her because her kids are awesome. Her and her husband do a really good job of raising their kids. They have sheep. And her one daughter absolutely loves these sheep. She can tell you their names just by, like, she can just look at them and know which one's which. And she's teaching her younger brother to be a shepherd because she's going off to college. And he is absolutely fine with taking over the sheep. He's looking forward to it. The younger kids are also, like, can't wait for it to be their turn. They love their sheep. They love their sisters and brothers. They love their parents. They all have this really strong family bond. And this woman never looks happier than when she's holding one of her babies. And she just glows with this motherly radiance that you know she was meant for this. You know, but Tasha isn't. She doesn't want to have children. Like I said, I was always on the fence about whether I wanted children. When I did get pregnant, I was overjoyed. I loved the idea that I was going to have this child to raise. And I was absolutely devastated when I never got to hold my child. You know, my son did not make it earthside. And Tasha and I both have this kind of feeling of a calling. For Tasha, it is ministering to other women who don't want to settle for Mr. Right Now. And that's what they feel like they're stuck with. They have to settle for this guy who may or may not be the right guy because time's ticking and time's wasting and they're falling behind. And she's helping them to understand that you have to be the best version of yourself before you can get to Mr. Right, because he's coming. If you're meant to be married, he's coming. You just have to work on yourself. He'll find you. And for me, I'm ministering to other women who have gone through miscarriages, who have anticipated a baby, who have built nurseries and designed nurseries and had names picked out and had all these different... They were ready for this child and then it just never came and they never got to hold their child. One woman I know, all she ever wants is to be a mom. And she miscarried 5 different times. And it broke her every single time. And finally she realized that she wasn't meant to be a biological mom. There was a little boy that was desperately needing a mom. And they found each other. She was able to adopt this boy and be his mom. And he is a pistol. He is an outright pistol. And I can't stop laughing at this kid because the things this kid gets into just crack me up. And I keep telling him I'm going to write a book and I'm going to feature a character on him because he is just such a great character. But yeah, I love... I like I said, I agree with everything she says. That, you know, for me, I've seen women who have been moms who love being moms. She's seen moms that have been miserable. We both have just different experiences. And I've seen moms that are miserable. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, I would absolutely recommend this book to any Christian woman who is single and floundering. And even if you're not a Christian woman and, like, this is a great book for you to read and understand that your worth is not tied up into whether you're married or whether you have a child. It is tied up into who you are right now and how you're reaching your potential and the potential that God has given you. Like I said, I can't really say much more than that. Link for the book will be in the description below. Until next time, I will see you later. And tomorrow, we will be drawing another TBR book number. So stay tuned for that. And then on Monday, we are doing a broccoli dish from the A to Z cookbook. So, yeah, nobody made a comment on the live stream video of what they wanted. At the end of this live stream, I will do the same thing. I will give you categories. You guys can choose one, comment which one you want. The one with the most comments is what we'll do. If nobody comments, then I will just pick what sounds good to me. Alright, that's all I got for you guys tonight. I will see you later. Bye.